nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Good evening and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. In a week that saw Jonny McGinty don an Edinburgh shirt, we are pleased to welcome you onto this fateful week of interesting rugby and fun and laughs, and Jonny McGinty wearing an Edinburgh shirt. I don't know, it's quite amazing, but that's a different story. We will talk about that further down the line. We're the Scottish Rugby Pod in association with Scottish Rugby Blog. You're also, if you are very kind or interested in more rugby and want to support the pod, you can join us on www.patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. For the price of a single half pizza crunch, you can have a month's worth of us talking absolute and utter rugby. Jonny, I thought you would enjoy that one.
That's a much better and much more accurate one. I like that one a lot.
Properly West Coasted it up for tonight. So we'll see. So as you've already seen or heard, we have a couple of people to join us tonight. I'm Craig Manson, by the way. Forgot to say that, as if you've forgotten who I am. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Jonny McGinty. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm all right. I'm feeling almost clean, but not quite. Getting there. A couple more showers of the Edinburgh stank should be off me.
We'll give you a chance to talk about your charity work later on, I would think, Jonny. And joining myself, Jonny, and Jonny, I should say, Iain. Hey, welcome, Iain. How are you doing?
Hello, Craig. I'm fine, thank you. And hello to everyone listening.
And
or watching as well, you know.
Watching, yeah. What have you been up to this week?
Hee-haw. Working and watching rugby and trying to start playing computer games and going, I'm kind of bored of this now.
Iain Hayes getting too bored of computer games. You know what?
And watching The Next Generation.
Oh, nice! I've just completed the full series. I've been watching that on Netflix, and that's me fully completed. Next Generation. I'm now on the Voyager, but I don't know whether to go Voyager or Deep Space Nine first.
Oh, I did like a bit of DS.
Nerds.
My brother he had all the videos, he had the VHSs. So we just finished. We just had the best of both worlds. You know, the big one where the card gets turned. We just watched that, and Rona was messing about on her phone, and I was like, Rona, look, you need to look at the telly now. This is important. But, oh, perhaps a Borg. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who's not seen.
Oh no, the people.
Also, probably skip the first series because it's kind of muck. Like I struggled through it. People advised me not to, but I felt like
I powered through it. But I did find my mum and dad are moving house at the moment, and I did find my Borg Special Edition box of all the Q episodes on VHS in a special edition box. I found that before my wife then said, "You didn't need that," and went to throw it out. I managed to secrete it somewhere.
I used to have a Next Generation alarm clock, and the did you call it? The sort of dish bit was separable. Oh yeah, the alarm clock you could have in English or Klingon.
Nice.
For start, but then sometimes I'd reach over to like hit snooze, and I'd knock the dish off, like this, you know, they can separate the saucer section, as we call it. They can separate the saucer section, and knock that off, and that made a horrible whooshing noise, and that would wake you up even worse. So it's like, I'm awake now.
So just for everyone who is,
whose virginity grew back just listening to that conversation.
Everyone who's not watching this and is listening to
this
podcast, Jonny McGinty has adopted the same pose and facial expression that I get when Jonny McGinty, Cammy Black,
you know, it's kind of like the
rapping about Moana.
It's kind of like the Picard face palm.
So we've discovered the nerd side of things is the nerd is strong in both myself and Ian. We're going to move on, and it's been a busy old week with news. First things first, Johnny Gray, wherefore art thou, Johnny Gray? Ian, where is Johnny Gray going? What's happening with Johnny Gray?
I don't know. Possibly France. I don't know. Would he come back up the road? I think like some people, Rory said something a bit disparaging about him, I thought, in our podcast chat. Because despite the fact he has had a, you know, like it must run in the family, you know, like his brother, he's had a wretched little spell with injuries the last couple of years. But, you know, his first season down at Exeter, they won the European Cup. I don't know if they were the English champions as well that season. I can't remember. So, you know, he's done well. I mean, he's an incredibly good player. Or certainly has the potential to be, has like world-class potential. But I'm really not sure where he's going to end up. I was surprised with immediate effect, and then it was to explore other opportunities, which usually means that something's already lined up. Otherwise, he would just left it to the end of the season, you'd have thought. Because Exeter still got a bit to play for. I think I don't think they're out of the playoff run. So yeah, I honestly don't have a Scooby. I'd take him back at Glasgow. The only concern there is with his brother Richie, you know, he's a bit injury prone, as I've already said, and the years are getting on. He'll play a reduced part, I think, from now on. But he don't want to stifle the development of Max Williamson, who has looked very good over the last few weeks.
Absolutely. More on Max Williams later. But Johnny Gray. Mind you, it'd be awfully nice, Johnny, to see both Johnny and Richie rediscovering their form like they did when they were playing for Scotland. I'm trying to think who they were playing when they both scored in the same game.
Argentina,
yeah, there we go. So it'd be interesting to see them coming up. But, you know, there is a rather large hole being left at Scotstoun fairly soon as Fraser Brown is retired, Johnny.
Yeah, I think that was kind of in the post a bit. He's not played much, if at all, this season. He's had his injuries. He's getting on a bit. He was doing a bit of coaching as it was anyway. I kind of had given up on seeing him in a Glasgow shirt again, to be honest. So it was a bit of a kind of inevitability. Grant Stewart coming back, I think, probably shakes things up a hooker a little bit. And I would imagine that Fraser's just looked at that lineup, and regardless of kind of who's going to be there next season and who's not, which I'm sure we'll maybe talk about in a minute, I think he's just kind of decided that enough's enough. You know, as you get older, the more you get injured, the harder it is to get fit again. And he's had some fairly serious injuries. He's not going to unseat the hookers that are there this season. So the time was right for him, I think. I don't think anyone was really massively surprised by it.
Yeah, but the big question then, with Grant Stewart coming back, Johnny Matthews in place, is all of the rumours, etc., coming true for George Turner going to Japan?
It's beginning to look more and more likely, isn't it? I think it depends what he's been told about the Scotland setup as well. I find that a little bit more concerning than Glasgow, to be honest, because, you know, as much as Johnny Matthews has kind of burst on the last couple of years, and has been scoring all these tries for Glasgow and starting to break into the Scotland squad a little bit. He's not young. He's 30. And so he's probably not the future of hooker for Scotland. I think he's going to be a really good option in the short term. Ewan Ashman is a little bit younger, but George Turner is our number one hooker, and he is not much older than Johnny Matthews, certainly, and only a couple of years older than Ewan Ashman. So it's not a huge concern for Glasgow, I don't think, if it does turn out to be true, because like we say, we've got Grant Stewart coming back, we've got Johnny Matthews. I think it's maybe more of a concern for Scotland.
Yeah, very much so. But then Ian, do we take? I'm sure we'll talk in length at some point about the summer tour. But do we take Ashman as the lead hooker, Johnny Matthews backing him up, and give Turner a rest, as Turner's well known for disregarding his own humanity when he comes into a rugby field.
Yeah, the old torpedo his head first into tackle technique. No, I said last week, I thought I didn't see it happening. Given his age, as Johnny said, he's only got a couple of cracks at the Six Nations left. Probably. I mean, there's a slight possibility of a World Cup at him. Well, I mean, not given the way that he tackles. But I'd still feel we're a bit light. The other option would be like Greg Hiddleston. Then from the rumours,
been all right.
Yeah, but with Stewart, a lot of times I actually very rarely saw Grant Stewart playing for the Bulls. Like kind of recently, a lot of times he was just there as a coach in the coaching capacity, and it would be James Malcolm, another former Glasgow hooker that started. I'll tell you what, we'll bring back Gerwin Price. That's what we'll do. So I don't know, maybe I don't know, Grant Stewart. He had that sort of same Scottish problem of being greater in the loose, incredible pace. I remember there was a clip of him and George Horn running, chasing a ball at the same time, and he was keeping pace with George Horn, but his darts weren't great. So maybe he's been practicing on that. Would Ashman be first choice? Probably. I think
the tour. I'm not so much not so much.
But then who is the backup? Who's the boy at Edinburgh again? Paddy Harrison, is that it?
Yeah. Paddy Harrison. I've got a lot of time for him. A lot of Edinburgh fans have a lot of time for Paddy Harrison. And again, in the loose, incredibly fast and a good player, nice pair of hands. But again, it's the typical Scottish thing, Scottish hooker problem of not having the greatest darts. But we'll have to wait and see. He's kind of got he drops in and out of the Edinburgh squad and plays a lot for the A's as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he develops more. Moving on, now that you've mentioned Edinburgh, the prodigal son is returning. Magnus Bradbury, Johnny, is coming back up from Bristol. He's been signed on a 2-year deal. Your thoughts? Insert Glasgow Leeds bias now, please.
Not at all. Like, I don't have the same things against Magnus Bradbury. That's just to throw a name out there. For example, John Anderson does. I think he's a fine player. What I will say I kind of share with John is that I've never been consistently impressed with him as a test level player. Having said that, he's ripped up trees in the Premiership for a couple of seasons with Bristol, and it's not the best league in the world, like to crow about it. Otherwise, the teams wouldn't keep going out of business. But it's a tough league. There are some great players from all around the world in the Prem, and Magnus Bradbury has been a standout at Bristol for a couple of years. So he's obviously a very talented player. I think he'll be a big addition for Edinburgh. I don't think he's Bill Mata. Would be my only concern if I was an Edinburgh fan. But I wouldn't say that Edinburgh are getting a dud. I think he is a very serious player. I don't think he's going to be back in the Scotland team. I think he was on the fringes of the Scotland team a couple of years ago, and I didn't see him as being consistently convincing. He's now trying to get into probably our toughest position, getting into the back row. And I don't think that's going to happen for him, but I think he will be a fairly serious addition for Edinburgh.
Yeah, and Ian, I think we I was going to ask about Scotland and Bradbury, and Johnny's kind of covered it. But yes, certainly no Bill Mata, but certainly has improved over the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, not many people are Bill Mata. Bill Mata in full flight is a joy to behold, isn't he? Remember that pass that's in our intro sequence. I remember watching that live, and there was this oh, this is lovely.
There was. I'm sure there was a fair few rugby cries of pleasure at that point in time. I know I did.
But yeah, like you said, Bradbury, he's coming down to England. He's played very well. He'll come up a more complete player. But I think one of the things that had always been sort of pinpointed was he's work rate off the ball. And that's something that Matt Fagerson is so excellent at, something that Gregor Townsend demands from his back row. And then we've got Jack Dempsey, who's come in, who's just an absolute smashing carrier. Probably more effective for that. I mean, that's like Bradbury's biggest asset, I would say, is he's carrying. Dempsey's he's probably more brutal than Magnus Bradbury. So yeah, it will be very hard for him to get in. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Hamish Watson couldn't even make the initial cut, and that man's been an absolute superstar for a number of years. But he'll be in the selectors' eyes more closely. So it's just up to him to prove that he's deserving of a shot at least of getting back in the team. But it's so hard to get in there because look at Andy Christie. He had to bide his time. He's come in, played 3 games completely out of his skin, and everyone's like he should be one of the first names on the team sheet. Jamie Ritchie, for Christ's sakes. There's another one that said to bide his time. But good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly it'll be a fantastic welcome at the Hive, I'm sure, for Magnus. And the last but no means least, Richard Cockrell has been talking to the offside line and has announced pretty much what we've been saying all along, and a lot of people within rugby in Scotland has been saying for some time, that Scotland seems to be stuck in a rut and nothing seems to be changing. Somebody who's not performing seems to get moved sideways and not taken away completely from the rugby setup. Johnny, Richard Cockrell putting into words on out to the general public a little bit of what we've been saying for some time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the hangover of wearing that shirt at the weekend or if I'm just maybe being out of the sun a little bit too much this week, but I'm finding it very hard to disagree with Richard Cockrell here, and that's not something that I don't think has ever happened to me before. He's pretty much spot on in everything that he says. It's been kind of quite a well-identified problem in Scottish rugby for quite a long time. It's a bit refreshing to see someone who is actually involved in that system just come out and flat out say it. And it also does make me wonder exactly what Richard Cockrell did, that he's the only person who hasn't been moved sideways and kept somewhere in Scottish rugby. Whether that was his choice or whether something happened that made the SRU think they don't want him involved in the setup anymore. I found that a little bit curious. Other than that, I think he's absolutely on the money with pretty much everything they said. So yeah, Iain, is this a little bit of a smacking of Richard Cockrell being turned down for the Scotland performance manager, or and deciding to say, screw it, let's go, I'm going to take them apart in the press?
No, I doubt it. I've actually only just started reading it there. It was one of the things I started sitting on press conferences when the COVID hit in, and I liked Cockers. I quite like that bullishness. I mean, a lot of it was very kind of tongue in cheek, a bit Zlatan Ibrahimovic-y, like when he called Glasgow little brother and all that kind of thing. And I think what forced him out was, I think we all heard rumours that he dropped a lot of senior players up the wrong way. I remember watching Edinburgh just absolutely, it was a game where Kinghorn actually played 10. They just capitulated against Racing 92. Like, it was just gutless stuff, and you could see that they'd down tools. And then shortly afterwards, Cockers had gone. So I think he was maybe a bit draconian. But he's not the first person to say that the Scotland youth are a bit underdeveloped. God, what's his name? Dave Rennie's assistant at Warriors.
Kenny Black.
No.
Was it Kenny Murray? Oh,
no,
okay.
Christ, Johnny, what's his name? It was John something. John.
Yeah. John DL.
No.
Not other one. No, John Mitchell's the women.
Right, aye. Well, anyway, Dave Rennie.
No, what you mean? And it's gone right over my head.
No, not Humphreys. Anyway, aye, that dude, he'd said that, mentality wise, Scotland were underdeveloped. Franco Smith said it as well, just I think today or yesterday. The young players, they get too nervous ahead of big games. So Cockers isn't wrong. And like you said, we've all been saying it, the pathways are farcical. It's been, it's like the SRU and the Catholic Church seem to just move problems sideways, don't they?
Yeah. We'll maybe talk a little bit more about this in the Patreon when we start talking about Edinburgh and a certain first half of the Edinburgh game. It's certainly worthwhile having a chat about that further down the line. And if you want to join us again, if you want to join us on our Patreon, on the Patreon part of the pod, you can go to www.patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast and pay the equivalent of a single sausage supper. Well, not a single supper, a single sausage from a chip shop. And that will get you a month's viewing and listening to us talk about.
There might be a lunch deal on though.
Oh, there might be a lunch deal on. Well,
all suppers £3.
Oh, well, there is that as well. Yeah. So we'll move on. We'll come away. We'll talk about a little bit of history being made. Scotland women went to Italy last weekend and came home with a win. First win against Italy for over 25 years. First win in Italy against the Italian women. Quite a performance, quite a step back up from the problems with England. Johnny, mental resilience of the women's squad seems to be on the up.
Yeah, and that was by far the most pleasing thing. Is we spoke a little bit about it last week about the mental side of things. We've just spoken there about Franco Smith's concerns about the mentality or the mental fortitude of some of the under-20s and the young players in the squad, and the women on Saturday afternoon were in serious danger of going full Scotland, and it was what Alex Ferguson would call squeaky bum time for a bit, and they pulled through. They did what they needed to do. They kept ahead and managed to come away with a result, and that's the sort of thing that we've been saying for ages, that we're looking for all of the senior teams in Scotland to be able to do it. It's something that was a problem for the men for a really long time. It's kind of reared its head a little bit with both pro sides this season. I think with Edinburgh slightly more than Glasgow, and that's not me trying to have a dig. I just think that's the way it's been. And we said we had concerns about it happening with the women, but that's twice now that the women have kind of got out of jail in a situation like that. Admittedly, obviously, the first time it was because Wales missed their conversion, but this week it was just down to mental toughness and sticking in, not making mistakes and getting it done at the end. So it's huge. I think it is a big deal, and hopefully more to come going forward.
Yeah, and Iain, there's an impressive defence on both sides of the teams. Italy looked incredibly strong in defence at times, but Scotland also.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that John said about resilience there. We defended so much better. One thing that Italy had previously been able to do, Italy like to chuck it about a bit. They're a wee bit off the cuff. And one thing that Scotland did really effectively was choke tackling and stopping the offload. I think there was at least 3, maybe 4 occasions where Scotland managed to win scrum put in by smothering the Italians right on the gain line and stopping them from playing. So that was extremely pleasing. Even with the Italy try, I mean, I've looked at that. I think you just need to appreciate a really good set piece move. From behind, you can maybe say Emma's drifted too early, but I think from a wider angle, it looked like Italy had a numerical advantage, so she had to stick her twist, and they just finished it well. But like Johnny said, there was that we nearly went full Scotland with the Chloe Rowley tip tackle, which then gave Italy a good chance to kick to the corner. I mean, even though they could only draw at that point, it still would have felt like I think it would have felt like a defeat to the players, to get themselves into that position, playing so well. Yeah, and like you said, first time this century we've beaten Italy in Italy. A moment of history could have flashed by their eyes, but they held strong. And then a dodgy line out, which was our problem against England, ironically, sort of saved the day for us.
It was definitely, Iain, we definitely seemed to have a game plan of starving Italy of ball. We seem to be playing well in that. We seem to be going into games with fairly strong game plans, and we seem to, Scotland women definitely seem to follow it.
Yeah, I mean, the only aberration has been that England game, but that England side are so far ahead of everyone, as we saw by the absolute thumping they dished out to Ireland. It was to be expected as well with the shocking conditions. Yeah, I mean, even to hold England to 46 points, I thought when I watched it back, it was like Scotland defended pretty well. Cohesively, so much better. There's no holes being left, and even hitting breakdowns, going for turnovers were a real nuisance. Ruck speed was very impressive. I thought Katie Mattinson was excellent. That's one thing I feel like I should add. Italy, a stat came up, said that Italy were their breakdown speed was rapid. Like most of their stuff, I think they had something like 48% under 3 seconds, 0 to 3 seconds, and we were at 38. But then the 4 to 6 was pretty similar, and that's Mattinson was getting in, razor sharp, excellent passing out. I thought she had an excellent game.
When you see Kildun's stats for the Ireland game, you sort of realise, actually, even though, like Iain says, it was a 40-odd point defeat, you see exactly how well Scotland actually did do. Because Ellie Kildun against Ireland, and I've got it in front of me because I was blown away by it, so I sent it to my pal. 351 carrying meters, 17 defenders beaten, and 6 line breaks against Ireland at the weekend. Jesus. And I don't think it would have been anything close to that in the Scotland game. So that, it still was a 45-point defeat, but we spoke a lot about it last week. You saw from the bounce back this week that actually, like you guys have said, Scotland in particular are defending really well. And when you're defending a player that can make numbers like that, it starts to bring it into even more contrast exactly how cohesive the defensive systems become this Six Nations.
Yeah, because I guess Kildun, definitely not only is she a phenomenal athlete and a fantastic rugby player, but she also is the beneficiary of a rather strong attack, as in a heavy forward attack that draws a hell of a lot of players in, and they give her the space. And I guess Scotland didn't give them as much space because they defended, just as you say, defended really well. But Johnny, talking about bouncing back, Lana Skeldon, player of the match, she's had a fairly bad injury, come back from it, has had a few shaky lineouts, etc., but seems to have played incredibly well this weekend.
Yeah, she's become a really important piece of the Scotland team. I mean, I think she's been going that way for a while. She has been massive. At one point she was kicking goals for Scotland, and now we can rely on the lineouts. Other than obviously last week against England, but like we've said before, we'll say again, like that was a blip. I think you're not going to get stuff like that again. her and Ellis Martin between them are two really, really good hookers. And so to see them lose, I think it was 7 lineouts last week, you could tell that wasn't going to happen again. All that being said, it is really important that when something like that happens, that you don't let it happen again. So it was really good to see Lana have a big bounce back. Well-deserved player of the match. And, she's going to continue to be important for Scotland, I think, for a while, fingers crossed. So it's great to see her back.
Absolutely. And Iain, Lisa Thompson really showing her the sevens work has really worked with it. She's worked incredibly well with that. It's bursting through tackles, taking on, looking for space, trying to get through. She made something like I've not got the stats. I had the stats and I've lost them. But she made a fair few meters through the contact patch, etc. She's coming. How can I put it? You may correct me, but she's really, in my opinion, has come on strong. She's been in a Scotland shirt for a long time, but she's just looks like she's taking that extra level now.
Yeah, I've said before, I think she's excellent. Like, genuinely is one of my favourite Scotland 12s. I think her ceiling is so high. And like you said, she's getting better and better. Like, I remember seeing her as a callow young kid. I think she missed quite an easy conversion to draw a game that I was watching on BBC Alba once. But she didn't let that get to her. As well as what you said there, our meters through contact, a couple of great defensive shifts as well. There was an early turnover, and then at one point, like once she'd won the turnover, used the blindside well, and made meters. She's getting so much smarter. Kicking game, she's the best kicker in the team by a mile. Not just in terms of length, but in terms of accuracy. And that was one thing, I'd said, all right, now this is like, I'm like 2 for 2 for wrong and right last week. I said we'd lose, and that George Turner wasn't going, but he is. I said Fraser Brown was probably going to retire. But one thing I did say about Scotland was we needed to use our kicking game better. And the worst thing for a defender to be doing, as Scotland discovered against England, is to be facing your own try line and have no idea what's coming up behind you. And her kick in behind, she nearly got a couple of 50-22s, and it was her kick in behind after a quick turnover. Italy made a mess of it. I think she even got to the breakdown as well, and that allowed Emma Orr to nick the ball and get the match winning, the try that puts into the lead. So yeah, excellent player. I've decided, because of her all-round game, I thought we're going to nickname her Toma Polotu, because I think she's that important to Scotland. I think she's the best player in the backline, genuinely, and it's a star-studded backline. I think she's the key element to it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one, Jonny. A plus and a minus for Chloe Rowley. Chloe Rowley came back. She seems to have come back to her old self again. She's still got the quick feet, still, taking meters, but unfortunate or, deserved red card.
No, I think she can't have too many complaints, to be honest, about that one. It's one of those ones where it is something that happens, and it happens in a game, but you could see at the time, I think. And I didn't manage to see it live because I was playing on Saturday afternoon, obviously. But watching it back, even knowing it was a red card, as soon as you start to see the replay, you're like, oh yeah, no, that is a red card. And it's rough for her because she has just kind of got back in, and like you say, back to her old self. Was a really important part of the attack on Saturday afternoon. But no, I don't think she's got too many complaints to make about that one, to be honest.
Yeah. So, guys, we move on to Ireland at the weekend, and I need some predictions from you both. Iain, I'll start with you. You've been on fire this week. So what's your thoughts on the Ireland game coming up?
I'm more confident with this one than Italy. I think because of it, like I said, we're more cohesive defensively. Now, I mean, I think it was maybe 4 years ago when we played Ireland. We were all over them. Territory-wise, it was ridiculous. then like one loose pass and Ireland are away. You know, now I don't think we'll make those same mistakes. We're a more cohesive unit. Like last time we played with the World Cup qualifier. I can't remember. I can't remember if that was in Ireland or a neutral ground.
It was in Dubai.
Dubai was neutral. Yeah, I think we're the better team, and now I think we are more cohesive defensively. I think we can nullify their threat while still having our own attacking threats. Because I mean, that Scotland backline, the back three, even with Chloe Rowley out now, it's still it's lethal. McGee and Ronald Lloyd are stars. Emma Orr is also going to be a sensational player. So I am confident. Emma Wassell's back as well, and obviously we send our condolences to her. You know, she missed the last couple of games, and our mum sadly passed. You know, Emma Wassell is one of Scotland's hardest players of this the 21st century. If Cammy R.R. Black ever finishes his opus. Yeah, no, I am confident. I think, like I said, you know, we have a game plan. We have almost a first choice 15 at Chloe Rowley accepted, even though she was, you know, Meryl Smith to start the first two games. That's just because we have more strength and depth now, which is always
well, you know, you'll see Meryl Smith, I would think, step right in here, wouldn't you?
Yep. So it'll be tight, but I do think, you know, seeing as we've beaten Wales away and Italy now, you know, go for the hat trick. You know,
absolutely.
Seal the deal.
A triple crown, Ian.
A triple URC crown. That's that.
Well, there you go. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And Johnny, what about yourself? What's your predictions for the weekend?
I'm going to go full Iain Hay, and everyone can come back and shout at me when I'm wrong. I'm going to say Scotland by 15, finish strong. I think Scotland have shown a lot of hard work has gone into this tournament, and it's been rewarded in pretty much every game so far. I thought that the France game, despite losing, was really, really impressive. I thought we kind of showed what we could do in attack in the Wales game. I think we defended incredibly well last weekend. I think if you take the England game out of it, and I think everybody's taken their England game out of it this year because England have handed out some absolute paddlings, I think we comfortably look like one of the better teams in this tournament. So I'm going to say Scotland by 15 and just fully expect the blowback when I'm wrong.
Well, it's a clean sweep with the Scottish Rugby podcast. We all expect a Scotland win. And for those of you who are quite interested in performance, etc., Sky Wilson has rated all of the Scotland players on the Scottish Rugby blog. There's some interesting articles there. So if anyone wants to do some follow up after the pod and have a look, please go over to the Scottish Rugby blog and have a little read of what's been written. Some fantastic writing and some good points to be made. Last thing on the open to everyone podcast, Johnny. Last weekend, Edinburgh Rugby held an inclusive festival prior to the Edinburgh Scarlets game. Someone was there from the Scottish Rugby pod. Tell us all about it. Tell us a little bit more of what you did at the weekend and how did you enjoy yourself, and was it a fantastic event?
It was really good. Second time this season, the Edinburgh Inclusive Rugby team have put a festival together. They are doing a power of work. Really, really impressive. So they've got their own inclusive setup that runs parallel to but separate to Edinburgh Rugby themselves. They get a load of support. I got a medal from Darcy Graham on Saturday afternoon. They get a load of support from the club. They are very, very well run. Them and their partners put this event on Saturday afternoon with 4 teams there. Some really good games, some great rugby, and then they were kind enough to host us at the Hive for the Scarlets game, and we walk around the pitch at half time. So yeah, so really great stuff. They hosted us really well. They fed us, which was brilliant. They put a brilliant wee festival together for the 4 teams that were there, and everybody who was there had a great time. And if you are not familiar with inclusive rugby, it is a way of getting people who are living with physical and mental disabilities involved in rugby. It's for those of us who enable in the game, it is a lot to get your head around. It's a very hard game to play. It is really, really good fun though. And yeah, brilliant. The only downside, which I think most people are aware of already, is that I went with the Fife Clan mixed ability inclusive team, not expecting to play as a full team. We thought we were helping out, filling out other squads. And when we got there, Edinburgh were kind enough to have put together a bit of a Barbarians team for us, where they'd borrowed some people from other squads so that we could get our fixtures filled. The only problem with that is because we didn't expect to be playing, we had turned up without our kits, and they went, "Oh, that's fine, no problem. We'll sort some kits for you. Don't worry about it." And I could hear the alarm bells, and someone disappeared away into the bowels of the big house and came back with a set of bright orange from last season's Champions Cup Edinburgh Rugby kits and handed one to me. I went, "There you go, you could just wear these." And I was like, "Canna."
If you've not got a England top, I can wear.
I could just wear this, canna. But no, and you know, it was excellent of them because they didn't have to do any of that, and I'm just being petty. But I wasn't especially pleased about it, and I sent it to you guys obviously early afternoon when it started, because I thought this is going to appear on the internet at some point, so I'm going to just get ahead of it and let everyone know what's happening. But no, I did it. I grinned and bared it. And you'll notice there's a big squad photo of all 4 of the teams, which was taken on the final whistle of the 4th game, or of the final game. And I've got my How drill top back on because I took that Edinburgh top off as soon as I possibly could. As soon as the final whistle had gone and I saw the camera coming over, I was like, nope. But I did it. And that's fine.
Absolutely.
No, they were excellent hosts. It was great.
And
really
can I just need to put something out there. I need a big thanks to obviously Edinburgh Rugby, but all of the enablers, all of the people, all the coaches that are involved. They all deserve a huge amount of thanks. But the biggest thing for us is the players that come along as well to get involved. The players just are fabulous. They get involved. They enjoy the rugby, and there are local inclusive groups throughout Scotland. And if you ever want to come along and visit and help, do some coaching, do some helping, but also come along and play some rugby, because I've been on the end of it myself where. You obviously don't go in and tackle or put hard tackles into the players that are there to do come across. For example, myself came across a Falkirk first 15 player who was enabling against me, and he absolutely halved me at one point. So it's a huge amount of fun. So if anyone's interested in getting involved, please look for your local clan or your local inclusive team and go and get involved, because Johnny's done far more of it than I have. But I'll tell you, when I did it, it was an amazing, amazing thing to be involved in. So more power to you. Well done, Johnny. That's fantastic. We'll wrap up on that fantastic high note for the public pod at this moment in time. We're going to move over to the Patreon pod now and talk about the weekend's games for Edinburgh and also Glasgow. For the price of a chip butty, you can have a month's Patreon content from ourselves. So,
surely a chip butty's not £3 now, is it?
Yeah, it's like, where are you getting these chip butties from? No,
a poker chips in Fife is now £2 odds, is it not?
You were doing so well there.
Then you've got to add in that.
Now you've gone off Starbucks on us, haven't you?
You're £2.50 for your bag of chips, and you're a 50p for the roll.
If I'm paying more than £2 for a chip butty, I'd be absolutely.
See if they're charging you for the butter on the roll as well. That can just go. I'll save that for Patreon. But
absolutely.
Get it salty.
But for now, we're going to move on. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are nothing without our listeners. So thank you very much for coming on and listening to the Scottish Rugby podcast. It's a good night for me and Hay.
Oh, hello. Yes, cheerio. Bye.
Jonny, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. See you all soon.
And for myself, thank you very much. And we will see you next week. Right.
I'm going to very quickly mute myself, and I'm going to try a wee sneaky last-minute workaround to see if I can get this YouTube stream into the private Facebook group. Give me 2 seconds.
Are they just like blocking any YouTube video on Facebook?
No, what they're blocking, and we can still put the. In fact, I better switch all the public ones off.
I tried to share a music video yesterday, and it said it went against community guidelines. How? I even read the lyrics. I'm like, right. None of that was like racist or anything. I'm like, oh God, have I started listening to